Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make pumpkin whoopie pies, and this is what they look like. What you have is 2 cookies sandwiched together with a creamy vanilla filling. They're just really a nice tasting cookie. So we're going to start by making our pumpkin cookie batter. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you'll need to line a couple of baking sheets with parchment paper, or you could just lightly butter your baking sheets or even spray them with one of those non-stick sprays. So when we make the batter, if you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you can use a hand mixer for this. The first thing we need to do is take 1 cup, 226 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. And you can use, I prefer unsalted butter. I like the flavor better, and then I can control the salt. But if you prefer, you can use salted butter here. So what I'm going to do is just beat this just until it becomes nice and creamy and smooth, maybe a minute. And as always, just scrape down the bottom and sides of your bowl as much as you need to when you're making any type of batter. You want to make sure everything gets mixed together. So now what we're going to do is add 2 cups, 410 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar. Now, brown sugar sometimes has lumps, so make sure you go through and break them up if you do have any. And so what I'm going to do now is beat on medium-high speed till it's nice and light and fluffy, probably 2-3 minutes. Okay, that looks good. So this is what you're looking for. Really nice, just to get some air in there. Okay, so now we're going to add 2 large eggs, one at a time. And again, have your eggs at room temperature. So I'm just going to beat in one and then beat in the second one. And also I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, just for a little flavoring. Good. So again, you can see our batter's getting nice and light and fluffy, just as we want it. Okay, so now for our dry ingredients, in a separate bowl, I have put 3 cups, that's 390 grams of all-purpose flour, or you may know that as plain flour. And to that, of course, whenever you do pumpkin, it's always really nice to have the spices. So I am adding 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger, and 1 teaspoon of ground cloves. And I'm also adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt. If you use salted butter, you might want to cut back on that amount of salt. And I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So we want that will help with the leavening of our cookies. And then I'm just using a wire whisk. You could sift it or use a wire whisk just to mix everything together. You especially want to mix that baking powder and baking soda really thoroughly into the flour, because otherwise if you get pockets of, especially the baking soda, you get a real bitter taste. So that's why we do this step. Okay, so now I'm just going to add our flour to our batter. Scrape this. Now, when you start your mixer, start it on low speed, because we got a lot of flour here and we don't want that coming up, spraying all over the place. And then about halfway through, I'm going to stop the mixer and I'm going to add 1 15-ounce can, which is 425 grams of pure pumpkin puree. And that's like pumpkin that has no spices added to it because we already added our spices. Okay, that's good. And now for our can of pumpkin. And I'm just going to keep mixing this until everything's really mixed together well. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Isn't that beautiful color? It's a lot of batter. We will get about 24 sandwich cookies here. So, if you don't want that much, you could half this recipe and that'll give you just 12 sandwich cookies. So now, so what we're going to do, now we're going to put about just over a tablespoon of batter. I like to just use one of these ice cream scoops, which is a little over a tablespoon. Otherwise, you can just use 2 spoons or to form your cookies. But you know, the good thing about using this kind of ice cream scoop is every cookie you know is the same size. Plus, it's a lot easier to do. So space them a couple inches, about 5 centimeters apart. Okay, there we go. So now, if you want them like perfectly round, what you can do is just take a little water and just get your hands just a little damp, and then you could press down on any little peaks that you have. Make them nice and perfect. Okay, that looks good. So now we're just going to bake these about 10 to 12 minutes, just until when you lightly press the tops, they'll spring back. Okay, so our pumpkin cookies are now done. When you touch them, they'll kind of spring back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let these cool completely. I'm going to bake another sheet of the cookies, and when we come back, we will make our vanilla filling. So now we'll make our creamy vanilla filling. To start, I'm going to use my electric stand mixer with the paddle attachment. Again, you could use a hand mixer for this, or you could even just use a wire whisk and do it by hand if you like. So first, you need a quarter of a cup, 55 grams of butter. You can use either salted or unsalted, and have that at room temperature, along with a quarter of a cup, 55 grams of vegetable shortening. Now, if you can't find vegetable shortening or you don't want to use it, it kind of makes the filling a little more lighter and fluffier, but you could just use another quarter of a cup, 55 grams of butter, if you don't want to use the shortening. So now, I'm just going to beat this until it's nice and creamy and smooth. That looks good. So now what we're going to add is 1 cup, which is 115 grams of confectioner sugar. You may also know that is either powdered or icing sugar. And I like to sift it because it tends to have lumps. So, which I've already done. So now we're just going to beat this in. Start it on slow speed so you don't want that coming up in your face. And then increase it to medium high. And then we're going to really beat this till it's real nice. We want to get some air in this, so light and fluffy. I would say anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes. So this is what we're looking for, nice and light and fluffy. So now we need some flavoring, vanilla. So it is a vanilla flavored filling. So we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. I'm just going to beat that in. And our last ingredient, which is kind of a little unusual. We're adding light corn syrup, 1/3 cup, 80 milliliters. And that is really going to make this filling really light and fluffy. So I'm just going to, with my mixer on low speed, I'm going to gradually add that. Now, when you're measuring out like corn syrup or like honey or anything like that that's really sticky, if you kind of lightly spray your measuring cup with one of those nonstick sprays or lightly butter it, you will find the corn syrup will come out a lot easier. It won't stick so much. So what I'm going to do is gradually add the corn syrup and then just keep beating until the filling is kind of like mayonnaise or sour cream, about that consistency. Looks pretty good. Let's give it a quick stir. Now you can adjust. If you find you want it a little thinner, you could add a little more corn syrup. If you want it a little thicker, add a little more sugar, but I'm happy with that. You can see it's really nice and light and fluffy. It really makes a nice pairing with the pumpkin cookies. So now what we're going to do is fill our cookies. So just try to match them up, you know, equal size, and then turn them over, of course. And then now you could just use 2 spoons and just scoop, you know, as much filling as you want, maybe around a tablespoon. Some people like a lot, some people not so much, but I'm going to use a piping bag, or you could just use some kind of plastic bag for this. And then I'm not going to bother with a tip for this. I've just cut off the bottom there. So that's why if you want to just use one of those freezer bags, that's perfectly okay for this. Nothing fancy. So just press all the way down and then turn the top of your bag and then just pipe. You don't want it too far, you don't want to go right to the ends, because when you put the other cookie on top, it'll kind of push it out a bit. So keep that in mind. And like so. By the way, these cookies are really good just on their own, even without the filling. So there we have it. So cute. So I'm going to try it. That's really nice. You got the pumpkin with the cinnamon, all those really nice spices. Very soft and moist. And then the vanilla, creamy, smooth filling. A really nice cookie. And now, you will want to store these. Like the first day they're all right sitting out, but then, you know, if you're going to store them overnight, put them in the refrigerator, and they will last several days. I like them cold, but you can also just bring them to room temperature. So enjoy, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.